Welcome to Fungo Talk. I'm your host, Matt Smith, co-host, Matty Moneyball Murata. We got Giuseppe. Hold on, I can't mess this last name up. Papaccio?
Nailed it.
Who's your daddy, baby? Assistant coach and recruiting coordinator for NJIT. How you been, Giuseppe? And what you been up to, man?
I'm doing great, thanks. I think I'm probably pretty similar to you guys, trying to be as productive as possible and staying busy, but a lot of like online recruiting and planning for next fall and just trying to get some stuff done around here too. It's obviously different spending time with my wife a little bit more than I thought I would be doing in May, but it's all good. Everybody's safe and healthy, so can't complain.
And talking about being productive and proactive, I got 2 kids, so I'm up at all times of the night. And I see you're up at like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. And it's not like just like you're up like maybe once or, here and there. It's almost like I'm like, dude, for the past few months, I've been seeing you on social media. You're up. Are you working out and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, I think it's just my like athlete routine background, and that's kind of the way I am just normally. I kind of found out that the only time, especially during the season and even during the fall, the only time I can really work out during the day is before everything gets started. If I wait until after, like there are some nights you get home, you guys know how it is. There's some nights you get home at like 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock. And I just figured if I do it first in the morning, I could get a consistent routine going. So I always try and do it before.
You're an animal, G. I know Maddie's up at that time, but Maddie's getting the hot tub started because after these shows, we gotta soak the body a little bit. Right, Matt? Am I right?
That's it, man. When you throw 2,000 balls a day, you need something to keep the arm going.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, no doubt, no doubt. All right, man. Listen, I want to take a trip down memory lane really quick before we get these questions going. You're a Jersey guy. You went to Nutley High School, obviously a superstar there. You put up some incredible numbers, and then you go on to Seton Hall. You're a 4-year starter, which is also pretty incredible because usually guys that get to college usually sit for a season and let the older guys kind of do their thing. So 4-year guy, you're part of a Big East championship, 4th all-time in hits with 237, all-time doubles leader with 56. You're an All-American shortstop, first team All Big East, New Jersey Collegiate Baseball Association Player of the Year, and then drafted by the Cubs in the 18th round. So again, I mean, this doesn't happen by accident. So what I want to know before we get to these kids' questions is, what was the secret to the success? I know you've always been regimented and disciplined. So what was the secret to kind of the behind the scenes of what you did? And did playing for a legend and Coach Shepard at Seton Hall have any influence on your coaching style today?
Yeah, 100%. So I think it's partially from my parents because they're both really hard workers, and my dad, even when it wasn't baseball, my dad was always telling me to try and get out and do as much as I possibly can. He was like, you want to be better than the other players, you just have to do more than them. And that was like before I even – I grew up my whole life playing baseball, but that was before I had any aspirations to do anything. So that was always kind of ingrained in me. And I think the thing that was most important was when I went to college, like you said, and I played for legendary coaches like Coach Shepard and Phil Kandari and Jim Duffy. And I think that I was everybody, when you go to Division I school, everyone's talented to a certain extent. But I think the way that they kind of like took me under the wing and molded me as a player, and the way that they coached me really, really changed everything for me. Like if I took my 18-year-old self and went to a bunch of other schools, I don't think I would turn out to be the player or the coach or the person that I am, as opposed to the player and coach and person that I'm becoming by going to Seton Hall. So they had a huge influence on me. Like my life would be completely different if I didn't play for them. So I'd say, thankfully, I was already kind of talented, and they just changed my career in a huge way. So I owe them a ton, and they know that. I always tell them that.
So going back to your parents, and you said your father. So your parents never really were in athletics at all.
No, my dad and my mom met in Italy. So my dad lived in Italy for his whole life. His whole half of his family is still there. His whole side of the family is still there. My mom went to Seton Hall, and she was backpacking through Europe, and she met him on a train and stayed there for a little while, and then they started a relationship. Obviously, she came back here, and they ended up moving back here to start a family. So it's kind of
Oh my gosh,
it's
look at that
a long
story.
story. Yeah, I mean, it's a really awesome story if you know the details. But neither of them had any background. Like nobody was playing baseball in Italy. My uncles both played sports and they played baseball, but it didn't have an impact on me. Like they weren't telling me to go and try out. Yeah, they helped me along the way, but both of my parents were just like, I remember going to my first tryout and I was like, I like this. Like
There you go.
they completely offered it up to me and I just took a liking to it.
Well, that's pretty cool because usually you see with parents, right? There's like a genetic gene pool that's passed down, right? Parents were athletes, their parents were athletes. So for you to kind of just all of a sudden just get into it, I guess you got a little bit of that blue collar Italian hard work out there that helped you out. So
I was just gonna say that I think that's the gene that I got passed down from my parents is like the discipline gene and the hardworking gene. I think I got that from them.
that's awesome. So speaking of hard work, right? You attended a lot of perfect game showcases in high school. Well, camera malfunction. So you attended a lot of perfect game showcases in high school. How beneficial was it, and did it help with the recruitment process?
I think just looking back on it, they weren't actually. I guess it's the way you word it. I was at more perfect game tournaments than showcases. I don't think I did any showcases where I just get like you get a T-shirt and you go and run the 60 like it is now. I didn't do any of those at perfect game, but I did play in a ton of perfect game tournaments because that's kind of it. We're all in the same age. Like when we were playing travel ball, there was like Georgia and there was like a couple other like tournaments in the area, and that was really like the showcase. That was like you have to play in those tournaments, and it was like that was a big deal. Now there's a million other things, but I think the perfect game and that whole circuit did have a big I guess impact on where I went to school because I remember the first time the coaches at Seton Hall saw me and it was at a perfect game event. So I guess if I wasn't there that all wouldn't have happened. Who knows though.
You know what? It makes a huge difference when you go to a showcase rather than tournaments, right? Because that all the coaches we've talked to, they talk about, you know, the metrics are great and all that, right? How the exit velo and throwing it from the outfield, but there's nothing like watching these guys live in a game and competing. And plus, like, you know, and Maddie said it too, we talk about is like the makeup of a kid, not just the physical, but also the mental side of, hey, if when he strikes out, is he slamming his helmet? Does he take it to the field? Is he, you know, a selfish teammate? Or is he a team guy? He strikes out, tells the next guy, hey, he's got a good curveball. You got to watch this. So I agree. I mean, those are the things that I guess are, you know, huge when you're recruiting a guy that you can't see on just that metric side. So
yeah, and we're seeing that right now too. Is like I know from my standpoint, the amount of videos I catch myself watching and the amount of showcases that I'm like looking at online, whether it be PBR, perfect game, I'm looking at as much video as you can to try and recruit as much as possible right now without any high school games. And that's the biggest thing that we're missing. It's like you look at all the metrics and all those websites do a great job of listing them, but that only tells you so much. And then you see video, but that only tells you so much. And then you have to call the coach and that only tells you so much. I think that's the thing that we're all looking for as coaches is like, we need to get out on the field and actually see what the kids are doing. There's so much to be told in an actual game and on a team and in that environment. So I think that makes a lot of sense. It's so different in recruiting and playing too. It's like playing. Sometimes there are really good players that don't showcase great, and it's like right now they're kind of missing out. But
yeah, no, I agree. Now the second question: what's the message to your guys when they struggle at the plate, and how do you mentally prepare hitters for a game?
That's a really good question. And they go perfectly hand in hand. So I like to think we train the guys really hard. So we practice really hard. Things that we do in practice, and that's the message in the fall. And once we start working out, is like we need to train hard. So in the game, it's not a big deal. Like you can't practice in the zoo and expect to compete in the jungle. Like we can't just do like T and front toss and I throw you 40-mile-an-hour BP and then we go and face Stetson's Friday guy and he's 92 to 95 with a hammer slider. Like we can't expect to feel confident if we don't prepare really, really hard and put ourselves in the best situation possible. So that being said, I think when guys struggle, we have to go back to the confidence that we have in our preparation. I think that's the whole process thing, and that's one of the big buzzwords right now is like process and see it through and stick with it and all that. But I think that's completely true. As a player, it was true for me, and I believe it as a coach too, is like the confidence you're going to see later in the year in April, May, and June, playing in like conference tournaments and playing tough weekend series. All of that confidence is built in September, October, November, December, all that time spent really honing your craft and challenging yourself and trying to grow a little bit. So that's one of the things. And if I had one specific answer, I think it's just you have to train really tough. And I think you have to practice the mental game, which we do every single day. So we touch base on that, whether it be breathing or visualizing. And we have what we call like mindset meetings on Fridays in the fall where we sit down. It's usually like a classroom setting where I'll kind of have like almost like a PowerPoint or a video, like a big leaguer doing something competitive. We did like Max Scherzer staring down hitters, and we talked about it and kind of dissected it. So we go into like mental game practice every single day, and we have some meetings throughout the fall, and we try and rely on that. So in the spring, in April, when you're 0 for 20, it's not like, what do I do now? You already have the plan that you built in the months that led up to that, and now you just work the plan. And it's the same thing when things are going good. Try and tell guys to just be the same guy all the time. Be the confident guy, be the relaxed guy, be the calm guy. And I think the hardest thing for some guys to handle right now is that it's the mental game, and your preparation is just like a muscle. Like you have to just build it up and keep contracting it every single day. It's like you can't read one mental book and do meditation for 20 minutes one day and then you're like, all right, I'm going to be ready for this. It's just like anything else. You got to just train it all the time. So that's a really long-winded answer, and I'm sorry for that, but that's it. Like when guys are struggling, it's more of like, you can't put a Band-Aid on it. They can't come up to me and be like, coach, fix me. It's like, I can consult them and I can talk to them and try and help them through it. But it's more of like, we plant that seed really early in the fall. Like, this is where we're going to get tough. We're going to get tough now. And then once we hit our speed bumps in the spring, we can kind of rely on what we're doing now.
Yeah. Murat, I know you played Giuseppe a lot growing up. I think you guys are close in age. What was the mental preparation when you guys went into Nutley to take those guys out?
Well, actually, funny story. I was maybe a junior or senior, and we used to do this preseason trip to Arizona. And that was the first time I met Giuseppe. And I remember, we were probably out on the field 2-3 hours that day. And, I'm walking to my car with my dad. And I remember Giuseppe and his dad going back out to shortstop, for them to kind of work on some stuff. And I was talking to my dad in the car. I'll never forget this. He was like, hey, what do you think of that kid? I said, honestly, I know he's young, but, he has it. He has the intangibles. Like, you saw everything he's talking about as a coach. You saw that as a player. And I think, that's the biggest thing. I think, me and Giuseppe are very competitive guys. I was a little bit older. Gee, what were you, a sophomore maybe when I was a senior?
Yeah, I think you're 2 years older. Or yeah, I was an 09 grad.
09, right? Yeah, I was 7.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, everything G's saying about, his mentality and what he's doing with his players at NJIT, I think is everything. And, when I'm talking to my guys, especially in the facility, I think it's understanding your swing. Like, too many guys want to make a change when they go 0 for 10, but, let's look at the timing. Are you on time first? I think, what G's saying is all of that preparation, should prepare you. And I think from a mental side, if you did everything that you needed to do, when you step in that batter's box, you trust that you're prepared. You know that you're prepared. And, we don't like to take the athleticism out of kids. I think, listen, it's great to be able to, change swings and look at things on, different videos, but you never want to lose that athleticism. I think there's so many times me or you probably got into the box and was like, I'm hitting a double in the big spot. And that's what we told the control center. It wasn't, hey, I need to get to X and then Y and then Z. It could have been more of a mental. So I think the mental side of things is everything. As good as, you want to be a coach, you got to be a psychiatrist for these guys, especially the college guys, because there's a lot of info out there.
100%.
Yeah, no doubt.
Really true.
Since we're talking about the mental side, you see it in the pros all the time with technology. They got the iPad. They kind of got everything on the pitcher from what he's throwing and stuff like that. Is that something that you guys are implementing at NJIT now? Like, do you have something like that, a scouting report for, hey, they're bringing in the lefty reliever right now, he loves the slider or this? Do you guys have all that stuff going on in the dugout?
Yeah, so Synergy is the software that we use, and I think everybody across Division I uses it now. You can see pretty much any pitch, or if you're looking at a hitter, you can see any pitch that the hitter or pitcher threw or saw for the whole season so far, and for most schools for last year too. So say we're going and we're playing anybody, Texas. We're going to play Texas, and before the weekend starts, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'll be in the office with our other coaches, and we'll be watching video on other guys, on their starters and relievers, and we'll take scouting reports that we've gotten from other schools, and we'll kind of make a hybrid of our scouting report, because that technology shows you the velo, it shows you the location, it shows you everything, count, anything you can think of. It shows you pitch type. You can search, like, if I'm looking at the Friday guy and I want to see their slider, I just highlight slider, and I could see all the sliders that they threw the whole year. So
Wow.
we can kind of devise a plan from that. But the other thing that we do is I send clips to all of our guys. We have a little hitters group me, and it'll be like Friday morning if we're playing a Friday night game, hey, here's tonight's guy. And I'll send, if he's fastball slider change, I'll send like 2 of each. So I'll send like a fastball from the wind up, a fastball from the stretch, breaking ball, wind up, breaking ball, kind of that sense. And then we'll look at like their main relievers. So I think it's really, really valuable. I think for guys as a player, I would have loved to have that, just to know who I'm looking at. Like, how many times have you walked into the box and you're like, all right, strap it on, let's see what we got. Like, you see them throw 5 pitches in the bullpen, and then you're like, whatever. But I think that's an advantage that is awesome across college baseball right now. We try and use it as much as possible, just to give, like anybody else, you want the competitive advantage. You want to try and put your guys in the best spot to succeed. So we do a lot of video. There are some like zones that we use. Like, all right, this guy throws only fastballs away to righties. He throws only sliders away to right, whatever.
And G, I mean, how helpful is that information if you have a guy that says, all right, hey, his out pitch is a slider, but he only throws it for a strike, 28% of the time. Maybe that's a pitch we might not swing at. Maybe that's a pitch that we want to run on because he throws it. Maybe I'm going to find out a lot more about my guy off the bench, if he's a better pinch hitter versus lefties and righties. So, like, I love how, it can make the coaches competitive, because people really don't know how much are put into scouting reports and getting the guys ready. And, just that full day of preparation. Like, when you're getting ready for a Friday night game, like, it's not a, 2.5 hour ordeal. It's a full day ordeal. You're trying to get them psyched up at breakfast for the starter, because hitting's a mentality. So I know we're the same. Trust me. I don't have to ask you, but, can you speak to that, like a little bit of the other things that people may not see?
Yeah, I can, but I wanted to touch on one thing that you reminded me of too, is I think that it's awesome that when you have video like that and you can put together a scouting report and you can talk to the hitters about certain things, you're also teaching them the approach. So we're trying to get a head start on, like, so say one of your freshmen has like 10 at-bats on the year, and he's not really in the mix as a starter. He's listening to you and all the hitters talk about all these different scenarios. Hey, here's their closer. He's coming in the game. He's 95 to 98, but he cannot throw a breaking ball for a strike. He has a 10% breaking ball strike percentage. We will not swing at a breaking ball today. We're only going to hit fastballs. Then like the kids that are trying to learn are starting to understand what an approach looks like, as opposed to like the old, I agree with it, but the old adage, like, just watch, if you're on the bench, you got to watch every pitch of the game. I agree with that. I think you could learn a lot, but I think the technology, the data, the numbers, the scouting reports help guys learn a little bit faster and try and, especially for younger guys, like I said, I think you try and straighten out that curve from high school to college baseball. But I think that is one of the things that I think is super important, is just trying to help guys learn as much as possible with as much information as we can. But you got to repeat that question for me. You wanted to know what goes into it a little bit more than just.
Yeah, some of the little things, like, walk me through, a big Friday game, you guys wake up for breakfast. I mean, what type of preparation gets done, from that point, especially being a Division I athlete?
Yeah, so we try and do as much preparation, or I try and do as much preparation during the week leading up to the game. So usually, you know how it is in college baseball. You play 1 or 2 midweek games, you practice, and then you're playing a weekend series either Saturday, Sunday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I try and do all the scouting report stuff as early as possible, and then some days you're doing it Thursday night before the Friday night game. But we try and do as much as possible when it comes to like looking at, we have like charts for positioning guys defensively. We have charts for their arms. We have charts for what our guys are doing. We're trying to like devise the best lineup, like looking matchup wise. So it's really like a whole week process, and it never really ends from February to May. It's like the weeks just keep rolling. You have a midweek you have to prepare for, then you have like the weekend you have to prepare for. But just like, I'm sure if you asked our guys, how many times did they go downstairs for breakfast, and our coaching staffs are like on all the computers and like printing stuff out. Like, I think it's ongoing. We do try and get ahead of it and do as much as possible. But in the morning we like tighten up everything and try and finish what we have to prepare for that day. And our staff tries to write the lineup in the morning for that day. I mean, obviously some things in BP and maybe like in and out will change some things, but we have a good idea of the lineup we're rolling with, the 9 or 10 guys that we're going to go with in the morning. And then we try and get out to like a team lunch if we're on the road, and we try and do that as much as possible, just to kind of like loosen up. And I think sometimes, I remember it as a player, you're in the hotel from like 9 a.m. and you don't leave for the field until like 4 sometimes if you're playing a 7 o'clock game. And there's like, yeah, you could be doing schoolwork, but there are a lot of guys that are like stir crazy. Like, they don't know what to do. So we try and go out for like a team lunch and just keep the camaraderie and have a little fun and stay loose. And then I think like once we hit the lobby and we're about to go to the field, it's guys have some headphones on. They're a little bit more locked in. You could see it in their eyes. They're excited. They're anxious to compete. So, and then not even to mention like the pregame, the stretching, the BP, the in and out, then the sprints before the game, then the 3-hour game. And then by the time it's all said and done, your Friday is like 8 a.m. to 10 or 11 at night. And then you play a morning game on Saturday and a morning game on Sunday, morning or afternoon.
Your wife loves you.
Listen, it's a grind, man, for sure. Since we're talking about competition, how do you get these guys competing with each other at practice, whether it was at Seton Hall with yourself or currently at NJIT? I mean, I know it's we spoke to Coach Reed about this, and in practice there's got to be that attention to detail, right? Instead of just going through the motions, every rep has got to count. So and I'm a big Nick Saban guy. I think I've said this in every single video, how he talks about the practices are harder than the games. It's almost faster. So when you're in the game, everything slows down, because sometimes it's so quick, right? You step in the box, you're in the field, everyone's screaming, everything starts to speed up, the nerves get a little higher. So what are you guys doing in practice to kind of slow the game down but make it still competitive?
Yeah, I completely agree with that practice has to be harder than the game. But we try. So if we were going to practice, either you could think of it as an individual setting, or if we were doing like a team practice and we hit for maybe 40 minutes to an hour, we try and do like 3/4 of that as more of like instructional and actually working on specific things. And then we close it out almost every practice, I would say, with some type of competition. So some things we'll do like, all right, we'll have one machine set up throwing hard fastballs, and then the next cage over is a breaking ball. And you split them into teams, and it's like you get one swing on each machine. If you hit a barrel, you get 1 point. So we try and compete that way. And like that's my favorite part of practice, because like we coach. I work with the infielders and the hitters. I coach the infielders for like an hour. We do base running. Then we coach the hitters for like an hour. And it's our time to like, hey, split up into teams, and then they just go to war. And it's awesome. Like that's when you see, and you guys remember it as players, like that's when you see the camaraderie. Like guys are like fighting over anything just because they're super, super competitive. So I think to do that every single day kind of breaks up sometimes like the monotony of like, especially in like the winter and in the fall, sometimes it's just practice 6 days a week. And I think if we do that every single day, not only for us, we kind of, I guess you can see who the guys are and who they aren't when they compete, and you could see the guys that like have to turn it on, or the guys that are just cool and they can compete. But I think that's the most fun part of practice, is like when you kind of see what the work that you're doing, you kind of see what you got, instead of not actually playing a real game, but you just see it in competition. So you see it's like feedback for me, like, are we training these guys right? Or when we go to competition in the last 20 minutes for the day, does everybody like crumble, and do they get really tight, and are they like trying really hard? And I think that's some feedback for me as a coach, is like, there have been times where I'm like, man, I have to verbalize something different to these guys, because when we go into competition mode at the end of practice, everybody's like scared to fail. And it's like, I've done that before. I'm like, and that'll change the approach for the next day for our practice plan. It's like, hey, we got to change our mindset a little bit, and it's something to work on. But we try and compete all the time. We chart. I'm telling you, we chart in the fall. We chart fielding percentage on anything: fungos, ground balls in BP, machine ground balls, team defense. Like, if anybody's hurt, they're charting for us, and we try and keep it as competitive as possible that way. It might not be like me versus you, but it's like, hey, team fielding percentage today was 970. Yesterday it was 968. Like, that's an awesome job. And there are other days where it's like, gosh, we caught, it feels like we caught half of the fungos that we hit. Like, tomorrow we have to be way, way, way better. So I think competition is, you can take it a couple different ways, but it's instrumental and for us. And I think that was me as a player. It's like, I think it's again, it's a muscle. You have to keep flexing that muscle to get really good at it. You can't just like, I think if we didn't compete and then we just show up February 14th for the first game of the year, for me, I'd be like a little bit uneasy about that.
Yeah, and you guys got quite the schedule too. Now that you said Fungo, you kind of got me stirring a little bit with two questions here. And I know Matty probably does this with when he used to coach. A, do you kind of show it off and show these guys how it's done being a former guy? You know, you're like, hey, let me see that stick, or let me see the glove, show you how it's done. And B, I saw you posted something, and you tagged a few guys. You were showing off your fungo skills inside. I saw that.
Yes. Yeah, that was quarantine, I just by myself with a fungo and a bucket of baseballs. But
I got to ask, Matty, did you see that?
I did not see it. I'm a little upset I didn't see it.
It was impressive. What did you do, G? You kind of bounced it and hit it, and like you did like a Tiger Woods thing with the fungo. I've never
done that. Yeah, I've never done. I don't know how I made that up. I was like holding the bat, and I'd like bounce it off the ground, and it comes up off the ground, and you hit it. And I hit it a couple times, and I was like, all right, let's try and like pinpoint it. So I hit one, bounced right center, and then hit one left center. And I don't know. I don't even know why I was recording it. I've never actually done something like that. But
the Mike Trout of fungo.
Yeah, using the whole field. I guess to your question with getting in there with guys, I do to a certain extent. Like, if I have say it's an individual workout, and I have the infielders for 40 minutes to an hour, like I like to get our other coaches to kind of like do the fungo or use the machine, and I go out there with the guys. Not like I have a glove on all the time and I'm like fielding ground balls and throwing it across the diamond, but I'll like, if we're working double play feeds, sometimes I'll play second base. Like, I'll just sit on the bag and I just like to watch, like, what does our third baseman's feed do to get to second base? What is our shortstop's feed? And there's a lot that helps me coaching wise. Like, I remember our shortstop, like sometimes he would have a lot of moving parts, and then the ball would come out of nowhere, and I couldn't really see it at second base. And
Mm-hmm.
Murata, you know too, as a former middle infielder, like sometimes you get handcuffed, you don't really see the ball, and that helps me coach the kid. Now there are some other times too where I'm completely out of the way and I'm just like watching and walking around, but I think there's a little bit, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's a little bit to it when you can kind of feel like you're getting in there in the nitty-gritty with your coach. Like, I like that. Like I'm going to be sweating. I'm going to be like kind of tired after practice. I want to get after it with the guys, but they're obviously to a certain extent. But I think that goes a long way when guys are like, all right, he's doing it. Like, let's try and do it. The other thing that helps me is just, it's a different viewpoint. I didn't always do that. This is my 5th year of Division I baseball, and I've only done it like the past 2 or 3 years. So my first couple of years, I was just fungo guy, throw the ball up and hit it, and like, all right, we take ground balls for an hour. But now I just see things a little bit differently, and I think I do like that. From the cage standpoint, offensively,
It's done. You're on the golf course. He's on the golf course now.
I'll mess around with our other assistant, Kyle Norman, because he just finished playing like a year ago at Monmouth. He's awesome, and we'll like before individuals, we'll like flip front toss, and I think it helps you when you are like feeling things and you're like, wow, that's probably what this guy is feeling. Like I just felt something and I thought something, the way my body moved, like, all right, this might help him, but I think time is an issue too.
Listen, you hit that on the head. I'm sure it's the same for Murata. I can't speak for him, but for me, working with little leaguers, like I still love to hit and do front toss and tee work because again, like it's stuff that, hey, again, this is a game that's evolving and you're learning things. So by you actually doing it, you can actually teach it too. Cause it's like, hey, I was working on this and this helped and that. When you kind of take that step back and you're not doing things, sometimes it kind of, you lose a step. So it's good to kind of stay engaged in it for sure.
One of the best ones that happened to me in the fall, one of the best times that we were doing that was like we set up a breaking ball machine like at a right, so it's angled at a righty. If I'm a righty, it's off the side of the mound, angled at me, and it was difficult. And I was like, we got a first group of individuals came in and they struggled with it, and there was no problem. We just moved on afterwards. We try and get them to be as productive as possible. But then I got in there after with our other assistant, and I was like, put that thing on. And I was in there, and I was like, this is not easy. Sometimes it's a refresher that like, all right, a breaking ball breaking at my body, and then over the plate, like you want your players to square up 8 out of 10, and then you get in there and you're like, God, that was harder than I thought it was. Like or like velo, you get in there and you're like, yeah, that looks good. And then you go behind the plate and it looks like 150 miles an hour.
Oh my God, it's too funny.
I think sometimes it's humbling. You remember how hard the game actually is when you get in there.
Yeah, I think I saw a few videos of Murata striking guys out and doing like the Jabba Chamberlain, like fist punch or something.
Yeah,
sounds right.
I think the tough part, and like G's saying, is we always want them to compete. So like, not that we do it a lot, but like for me, if a guy, I feel like he's kind of going off course. Like I love getting in the weight room with him, like showing him, how to work. But I mean, the one story that kind of sticks out, and this is funny, is I'm throwing BP one day. It's like 28 degrees, and we're in the first round, and like every 3 balls, it's like, it's cold. Oh, my hands. I strip down to a short sleeve shirt. I throw BP for like 45 minutes. I'm like, it's not cold out. I'm like, it's beautiful out. Like, we end up winning the doubleheader. I end up getting sick for like a week. And all my kids are like, hey, I thought it wasn't cold out. I was like, we won too. That's all that matters. But like little stuff like that, I think is everything. Like we got to toughen this culture up a little bit. That's okay. Yeah. That's okay.
That's awesome.
God, since we're talking about the kids, again, next question. What trait do you value the most when it comes to recruiting kids for your program?
Trait?
Yeah, I guess like mental toughness or stuff,
The one thing I really, really value, and it's a little bit more difficult now that we can't have guys actually on campus, but I like to try and learn as much as possible on the visit. So I like to kind of dissect guys really socially, and it's normal and it's not a weird conversation, but to see what their plan actually is, to see what their goal is. One thing I ask every player that I talk to is who's your MLB comp? Who's your guy that, like, if we're playing in the big leagues, who are you? And like everybody, the best player on earth would say, my big league comp is Mike Trout. So I try and learn to see like, how do they profile themselves as a player? What are their strengths? But I also ask them questions like, all right, if you're a hitter, what do you like to work on? What are you doing right now in the cage? Like, what are you working on? If you can hit that next level, if you can be an ASUN level contributor as a freshman, what is your plan to get there? Like, what's the approach that you take to get yourself better? And there are some kids, I think if you asked me that as a junior in high school, I'd kind of get a little nervous and try and figure out the best answer. But they're the kids that really know, like you talk to them and they know their plan, they know their routine, they know what they're aspiring to do. I think that just helps guys. So you try and do all the tangible stuff, like you see their metrics, you see their 60, see their exit velo and all that. But then when you can talk to a kid, so you feel good about the player, you get them on campus and you get to know him a little bit. But if he can if he can kind of convince you that he's got a plan and he has like his mind on right and he knows where he's going and what he needs to do to get there, I think that's one of the biggest traits that you can have. Not that that's a trait, but that's one of the biggest things that I look at is like, let's see, is this kid just like, yeah, I hope I commit soon, or I hope I make the travel team next year, whatever it is like that. I don't think those answers are good enough for what you're looking for in like a top level Division I athlete. I think the kid that's like, yeah, I'm working on staying inside the ball, my bat plane, I'm working on lower body stability, all answers like that. You guys know the answers, but answers that have some thought behind it. I think that's important because
well, listen, I couldn't agree more. I got to cut you off there because I think those questions, show the passion for the game, and it shows the baseball IQ and the thought process that goes behind it. So to me, it's impressive because not a lot of high school guys, obviously, like you said, if there's like a broad answer and it's kind of like maybe it shows they're not really a student of the game, right? If you're really into this game and you're passionate, you're probably studying everything and you have all these answers of, hey, I'm working on, like you said, my plane, I'm working on this. Or if I'm a pitcher, I've been working on my hip hinge, right? And that terminology can impress a coach because it's like, hey, man, this kid does his homework. He's locked in. But again, like you said, he's got to have the tools, right? You're not going to have a guy throwing 55 throughout terminology, and you're like, hey, it's good you know the game. I mean, maybe you could work for the stat guys behind the scenes, but playing-wise, 55 ain't going to cut it.
But just that, I mean, you completely hit it on the head, but like an example would be, so if we have a kid that I saw one game wherever, we saw him in a travel tournament, and he comes to campus, and as a staff, we're like, all right, we think he's a guy, we might offer him, we have to see how the visit goes. And then there's like, you go to the weight room and talk to the strength and conditioning coach and you listen to what they're talking about, and the kid has a plan in the weight room. Check. That's awesome. The kid has a plan in the training room. Check. I foam roll. I do this prehab. We talk to academic advisement and he has a plan. This is what I do after school. This is what I do here. Then we go and we show him the cages and he's got a plan in the cages. It's like, then we meet as a staff before we like dismiss the kid and before we close it out. And there have been many times where we're like, let's do it. Like this kid he has feel. He knows what he's doing. That's the kid that's going to have a smooth transition from high school to college because he already has the plan. He's already thinking the game. He's academically, in the weight room, socially, but baseball too. It's like he has a plan on what he needs to do to hit the next level. There have been kids that in the same boat, they're really good players and they come on campus and it's like, we can't make a decision right now just because it's like you don't really know yet. You might have seen him once and the conversation isn't great, but I think that's the intangibles, like just knowing the game, thinking the game, and having a process. I think that helps your skill set play up.
Yeah,
I think that
Maddie, quickly, what do you value?
I'm big on character. I think everything that Giuseppe's saying. I think if the kid doesn't accept failing, I think that's everything. I think if, he walks in, he goes 0 for 10 and his mentality is, I'm unprepared, it's not going to work out. Like, I'll take the character kid that will never fail. The kid that sees more, speed bumps instead of roadblocks, like, all right, hey, I might be stumbling. What do I have to do to get back? I think that's everything. And especially in Division I baseball, it's a very humbling game. It's a very mental game. So, I think being mentally strong, being prepared, and having a good plan of attack and saying, hey, listen, I'm not going to fail. I might struggle, but I'm going to change X, Y, and Z. I'm going to work on this. I think, that's everything for the Division I level.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more with both of you guys. Yeah, I mean, just for the same with me, I like guys that can hang in the pocket when things get tough. It's so easy to recruit a kid when, you're on a winning team and this and that. And listen, you see it in the NFL all the time, right? A guy, SEC, he's been on a great team. He goes to the NFL, team's not doing that good, and you might start to see him point the finger, hey, it's not, you know what I mean? Or you see a guy, leadership qualities. Even you look at a guy like Tom Brady, right? Everywhere he goes, it's like accountability. He brings this leadership. He brings a different swagger. I think those are the things that I love when I see a player. I can't stand the guys that point the finger and make excuses. I think, like Maddie said, this is a generation where we need to be tougher. And a lot of guys now, they want instant gratification. They want, my dad said it's not my fault. Or, again, like these are things that not only college guys, but high school guys are going to look at. So, I agree with you guys.
Yeah.
And that brings us to one more question before we get the Moneyball question. Personally, you've had so much success as a hitter and a fielder and just being on teams that have, gone to the regional. What were some of your go-to drills that really helped you, in the cage or before going into an at-bat or, like you said, fielding, like working on your footwork? What were like those go-tos, those I must do this to really get ready?
I think something that helped me when I was growing up as a player and maturing and kind of hitting my peak was when I actually had a routine that I can go to every day. So whether it be in the cage, like I still remember my routine to the like swing for swing right now. Like I would get on the tee, do a certain amount of swings. I would get front toss and I would get overhand BP, but I would always try and finish on the machine. So I only picked that up my junior and senior year. Like before that, I was the guy and it's hard to coach this guy sometimes. I was the guy that was like, the machine, my timing isn't good on the machine. Like I don't hit the machine good. And it was like, just keep throwing. My junior and senior year, I kind of grew up a little bit and I was like, I can do all my routine stuff, front toss, tee, all that stuff and feel good and work on more mechanical stuff. But like, let's turn the machine on and put on, I remember it's a big box machine called the home plate machine. And it throws like up to 8 pitch sequences. So you can program righty fastball, slider, change up. Like you pretty much have an at bat. And I would get in there.
I have it here. It is one of the most challenging machines to hit off, but it's such great feel, especially with the off-speed stuff. But continue.
I actually did see it in some of your stuff, but that thing changed my career. It was like I could either I could leave the cage either with something to work on. If that thing carved me up, it's just like taking a loss in a game, 0 for 4. It taught me a lot about myself. I have something that now that I can work on and learn from for the next day. Or if I hammered it and I had a really good day in the cage off that home plate machine, like I felt good and it was a win and I learned from that too. So I think not as much drill wise, but I had my routine that was like more swing and like get my body right. And then it was at the end, kind of like our practices I told you about. At the end, it's like compete and figure it out. Like this thing is going to be challenging. And I remember being able to, when I was able to control my body, control my eyes, and control my breathing off of that machine that was hard, I felt like I was ready for a game. I was like, all right, I can control the game now. Like I can.
Well, I'm gonna stop you right there, and then I'm gonna let you continue. What you just said is what we just talked about, right? With mental toughness, and you see a kid, I can't do this, I can't adapt and try and right. I think that's the biggest thing. Adapt to it. You gotta adjust, right? What if you got a pitcher on the mound that changes? Hey, he's quick pitching me. You can't just step out and complain. So I like you said, I would love to see that kid, and I was that kid too, probably when I was younger. This machine's throwing me off, this and that. But like, hey, now you would love to see that kid. It would be impressive. Hey, I got to make an adjustment, coach. Right? That terminology, be like, that's impressive. So
yeah, it's really mature. It's really mature, and there's like, I try and tell guys too. It's like I don't expect you guys to be a finished product right now. Like I would be like, I don't know, a hypocrite if I thought that, because I was never like that as a player. Like it took a lot of college at bats. It took a lot of summer ball. It took a lot of work on the side for me to kind of like figure out who I was and where I was going as a player. And then once you feel like you have a grasp, then it's like you got to flick the discipline on. It's like you got to actually work that plan every single day. You have to do that all the time. So, I mean, I hope that's a good enough answer from offensively, but defensively, I think something that helped me a ton was in college taking ground balls and playing every infield position. I was a shortstop and I had to take ground balls and play short, second, third. I played some inter squads at first when my arm was hanging. Like I've played everywhere, and it just teaches you a lot about like movement patterns and vision. Like seeing the ball come off the bat playing third is way different playing second. Some stuff I like to do as a player and as a coach now is like for an infielder, like a lot of one-handed glove work. Because I think some guys, especially like high school kids coming into college, like they get away with bad feet and they get away with bad glove work because one, in high school, balls aren't hit as hard. So it's not as hard to catch. And two, I think they can get away with like using two hands to overrule like one bad hand. So we do a lot of one-handed stuff because if you're funky glove movement with one hand, you don't have the throw hand to cover it up. you just have that one hand and it's going to be do or die in the one hand. So we do that a lot. I did that as a player, and I do that a lot with our guys. I like to move guys around a ton too. Like I took that from playing days. I like if you're an infielder for us, and we tell guys in the recruiting process, like I learned it in college, and a lot of people learned it in college, but it was with me all the way through pro ball too. It's like you got to play every position. There were times when I was playing pro ball, I would play shortstop Friday, second base Saturday, third base Sunday, third base again, third base, second base. Like you're all over the place. So that goes into your routine. Like BP, I remember being in Daytona with the Cubs, and I literally BP, I was just running around the field, like 5 ground balls at third, 5 at second, 5 at short, 5 at third, 5, like all over the place. And it was just, that's how I felt like I needed to prepare myself, because I literally had no idea the lineup the next day where I was going to be playing. And I think as a coach now, it's like when you see that kid come in and hey, stick him short, third, second, stick him in center field, like he can play. And I think that's it. Again, it's not as much of a drill, but it is like a routine of practice. I think it's a principle that we try and get across to the guys. Like, let's be able to play everywhere. So in May, if our second baseman goes down, but we need your bat in the lineup, we could stick you in there because you've played second base a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you just nailed it on the head too. Guys are looking for athletes, right? If you're an athlete, you can play anywhere on the field. So I think that's huge, right? You see kids now, well, I'm more in the little league sector, but you see a kid, hey, like I play, this is the only position I play. That's it. And it's kind of like, hey, like if that's what you do, you go to high school, hey, you got to go somewhere else. Now you totally, hurt yourself because you're not prepared to do anything else. So, and then also I talked to Coach Hubbs about this in our last interview, was kids only playing one sport too, how that kind of hurts their athleticism, right? Because you're training your muscles to do one thing. Where if you're outside playing the pickup basketball, pickup football, hockey, rollerblading, I mean, rollerblading is like non-existent. It's like everything's electric now. So like no one's even working their muscles. You're just kind of like, scootering around now. So
that might be my next quarantine thing is get a pair of rollerblades. Depending on how long we're quarantined, might have to get rollerblades.
I think Murata will get on some blades. I know he's probably rollerblading somewhere in Lyndhurst or wherever he is.
But the thing you were saying about playing multiple sports, and our other assistants will vouch for me on this one, you'll be surprised how many guys we get like recruiting videos on, and we search like whatever, Google or Twitter, and we see their football video pop up. I watch the whole thing. It's like you're down the rabbit hole. You're like, how did I end up watching this pitcher's quarterback video from 2 years ago? And it's like
running guys over, giving the Tebow halftime speech.
Yeah, like you could learn a lot from a guy like that. But it's the truth. You see, like we would watch some of our committed guys, like we're watching and tracking their basketball high school scores. Like it's true. Like I like it. I think it's valuable.
Oh man. All right. Before we get to this Moneyball question, I'll tell one story and then Maddie get right into it. So I coached at Bergen Catholic for a year, and I helped out in gym class with Coach Toll, who's the football guy. So hey, listen, he's recruiting for years. He's he's the best, right? So he's got 3 guys that come in. They're looking to play football, obviously, and he goes, "Watch this." He throws each of these guys a basketball, and these are like 6'5" linemen. Some are like 300, 290, and he's like, just by watching him shoot, because he's like, I was like, why are you throwing him a basketball? He's like, I actually want to see like who's an athlete, because if you're an athlete, these guys, they can do it all. You could give them a golf club, they'll hit. You can give them a football, they'll throw. You give them a baseball, they'll throw it. So, I thought it was actually kind of smart where it's like he's looking for, when he puts guys on the line, right, who's a multi-dimensional guy, right? Is he just a football guy, or can he do more things to be an athlete? So I thought that was pretty interesting. You might have to use that for your camps. Get guys on the football line and throw them some balls. But all right, Maddie, take it away, buddy.
Got jump shots today.
Yeah.
I'll go to the money ball. So, G, I'll give you a non-serious question, then we'll go with the serious question. I got sniffed on this question last time, but I'm feeling good. You're a fellow Italian, so I feel like you might have some weird superstitions. Just for me, I remember, I'm super Italian. My parents, I think I had a rabbit's foot in my pocket across my senior year. Like, I'm hitting 500. I'm not changing a thing. So was there any odd like superstitions that you might have had? I think there was a couple of days where I would get some holy water before the games. I mean, I would do pretty much anything to give myself that mental edge.
Yeah, there's two things. One that I picked up in high school. I don't know how this happened. I put like when I was getting changed in the locker room, I put my right sock on first, and I just stuck with the right side with everything first. Right sock on first, right shoe on first, right batting glove on first. And I remember I hit like a homer and a double. It was like a high school inter squad. It was like February, maybe March. And today I put my sock on my right
That's
foot
amazing.
first. I swear to God, everything. But besides that too, like more, I picked this up in college. I would try and read on the bus. I would try and read like a couple pages from a book that I was reading every day right before we got off the bus. So I would kind of know like when we were getting closer, when we pull into the stadium. I would just read like a couple pages. Like it was usually, that was when I started practicing the mental game. So it was usually like something like that, mind gym, heads up baseball. And like the day before, if I played good or we won, like I went back and read the same 2 pages again. And it's like, it's just funny to play those games with yourself. But I think, I don't know, it's also part of a routine. But yeah, still putting my right side on first for everything.
Love it.
Are you carrying a rabbit's foot?
Better.
Do you have a rabbit's foot in your pocket?
I have the exact same routine. So still to this day, it's got to be right, left, batting glove, sock, same deal.
That's how
I think
it is, man.
I think Giuseppe's right. I think he's still got the rabbit foot in his back pocket right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It's probably in there.
Oh man.
And G, you touched on this before. I think this is great. I talk to so many guys. Guys will come into my facility and I'll say, "What position do you play?" And they'll say, "Shortstop." And I say, "No, you're an infielder, but you're a primary shortstop." How important is it to recruit guys, that can play multiple positions? I think a great example is, you and I, we were third baseman, second baseman, shortstop. We were able to play different positions. And I think that was a big reason we were able to start as freshmen because, if the second baseman went down or needed a day off, we were a guy that could play multiple positions. So how important is that for these guys, especially with roster sizes in college, in the recruiting process? Like how much of a competitive edge does that give them? Because now he could play center field, he could pitch, or he could play infield in a spot.
Yeah, it opens up the recruiting process for high school guys so much wider. The landscape is huge because you can play multiple positions, but other schools might see you in different positions. Like this kid plays shortstop on his travel team. He would fit perfectly on our team as a second baseman. And then you go see him again and he plays second base and you're like, all right, let's do it. But there are some times where you see a kid where he'll be, say he's an outfielder and he can only play the outfield. And you're like, all right, I love this kid. I love his bat, really good grades, runs really well, great arm. We need someone to be able to play like the outfield and the infield, not a fit. But if that kid can play multiple positions, like you are like seen by so many different schools. It's the same thing with academics. Like if you have bad grades, you're off the list for a ton of schools. So the recruiting process is way more difficult. Same thing playing different positions. It's like you open up your options way, 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 way bigger just by being able to play multiple positions. I think like a high school kid, it's a perfect age to do it. And I have one story, like I was playing, it was right before I got drafted. I had a phone call with the Cubs, and one of the first things they asked me was like, would you be willing to try and catch? Swear to God, I've never put on catcher's gear in my life. And I was like, I wanted to get drafted. I was like, yeah, I'll catch. I was like, they'll never ask me to catch. And like they signed me, and July rolls around, and like the catching coordinator's in town. He's like, do you have gear? I was like, no. He's like, I just borrow his. And I went to the cage, and I literally never caught in my life, and I caught balls off the machine. And I was like, oh my God. Then like, I mean, thank God it didn't go any further than that. I didn't do too well. Spring training too. I play infield, never played any other position. And one of the spring training games, I'm starting in right field. I was like, I don't even have an outfield glove. I haven't played the outfield since Legion. I was like 13.
My gosh.
Like, so I think if you can do it as a high schooler, it opens up so many doors for you. More often than not, if you're chasing the dreams of playing professional baseball, you're going to have to play different positions anyway. So I think to do it at a young age is super beneficial to guys.
Yeah. Great point. Giuseppe, you're the man, dude. NJIT's lucky to have you. It's refreshing to have a guy that's been in it, and that, again, the feedback's so important, right? I think that was my biggest thing with coaches is being able to communicate with a guy that's been through it, because it's easy to kind of relate to that. So again, we're lucky you're in the coaching world, and nothing but success, my man.
You guys are awesome.
Let's get on the golf course. Let's do it, guys. Let's golf. I'll bring the rabbit foot. All right, boys. Take care.
Have a great one. Thanks again.